Alright, what's up everyone, I'm Faloki, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Week 2 matchup between the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. This game will be the home opener for the Seahawks after a strong performance against the Falcons. However, unlike the Falcons, we really don't have any previous games to go off of because the last game between the Seahawks and the Patriots was in 2016. The Seahawks did win that game back in 2016, 31-24, but with names like Doug Baldwin and CJ Prosise being the main stars on the Seahawks and the entire Legion of Boom on the defense still being around, it's pretty clear that there's been a lot of changes since that game. Of course, one of the main changes this offseason for the Patriots was the loss of Tom Brady and the addition of Cam Newton. And now with the offense being shaped around Cam Newton, there's a lot of differences since the last time we saw the Patriots. Of course, we saw a Week 1 game against the Dolphins, but the Patriots really didn't show their hand against a weak Dolphins team. They ran the ball 42 times, passed 19 times. They were very efficient when they did pass the ball, and Cam Newton, he played very well. Obviously, Cam Newton is not the MVP Cam Newton that we knew from years ago, but he's still a great quarterback, and he's not someone to just sleep on. I think that he can definitely cause problems to the Seahawks if they don't focus on him enough. One thing that's definitely worrying to me about the Cam Newton addition is the fact that we have no idea how the Patriots are going to play. Obviously, Cam Newton is great. The Patriots ran the ball 42 times last week. They could throw the ball 42 times this week. Really, you have no idea what they're going to do. The Dolphins aren't really a team that the Patriots really had the game plan for. They're not the greatest of teams on defense, so it's really kind of hard to see what they're going to be doing on offense against a pretty good defense that the Seahawks have. Of course, the secondary didn't look amazing against the Falcons. They let up well over 400 yards, but there were some good plays made by the secondary. There were some bad plays made by the secondary, but most of the game, the Falcons were behind, and they were trying to come back, just throwing the ball deep. They were getting some of those by, some of those weren't getting by, so of course, some of the stats are a bit, they don't really mean the same thing as if it was a close game the entire time, but still, the secondary did let up a lot more passes than you would have thought they would have. But really, we have no idea what the Patriots are going to be doing on offense, so it's probably going to be a very difficult first quarter, maybe even first half for the Seahawks defense, and things might just get messy because we don't know what they're going to be doing. They might run the ball a ton, they might pass the ball a ton. We have to be ready for either option, and with so many read options, last week I believe they had 11 read options that game. Cam Newton, I think, took 5 of them, and the running backs took 6 of them, so we have to play those well especially. And then passing, I think there is one thing that is a bit hopeful when it comes to stopping the passing game, and that is the fact that the passing chart for the Patriots in Week 1 really didn't have any deep plays on the outside, so really the main focus for the Seahawks right now would probably be stopping those kind of short intermediate passes across the middle. I think that might be a positive because we don't have to worry about the deep balls like we did against the Falcons, because the Falcons were very good at deep balls. They were great in the passing game, make big plays, and they did make big plays last week. The Patriots, I feel like they'll get a couple, but most of the time I think their pass game would be working underneath or in the intermediate range. Another thing that's going to be pretty drastically different from last week against the Falcons is the fact that the Patriots have a very strong defense. Last year they led the league in takeaways, and just last game they had 3 interceptions against the Dolphins. Russell Wilson, of course, is very good at keeping the ball out of the defense's hands. He does very well on not throwing picks, so I do believe that we'll be fine. I don't think we're going to be throwing 3 interceptions like the Dolphins did. It's really just a matter of, is our offensive line going to be able to hold up against a pretty good pass rush from the Patriots? They're just a very well-coached team. They play defense well. They're a very good man-to-man coverage team. Really, Stephon Gilmore, he is a problem. He was the Defensive Player of the Year last year. He is a great corner. He can basically just shut down anyone that he's guarding, but who will he guard? That's really the main question for me. I believe if Stephon Gilmore is going to be guarding DK Metcalf might just be out of the game. The DK Metcalf deep ball might not really be an option this game if Stephon Gilmore wants to cover him. If Stephon Gilmore covers Tyler Lockett, then, maybe DK Metcalf can go off, be the main target. But really, we have to wait and see. This defense is definitely going to be very strong, but I definitely think that our offense is talented enough to hopefully do well against them. One thing that was pretty interesting that happened earlier this week was Bill Belichick giving very high praise to Russell Wilson, saying that he's one of the best in the game. He ended up saying this.
Yeah, he's more than a good quarterback. I mean, he's one of the top players in the league, and has been for his entire career. He's a tremendous player, obviously a tremendous person. He's just really good at everything, and you have to defend the whole field with him. Very dangerous. In the pocket, out of the pocket, great deep ball passer, has excellent vision, super competitive, hard to tackle. I mean, he's a great football player, and there's nobody I have more. I respect a lot of players, all the players really, but I mean, he's certainly at the top of the list of the people we compete against. He's tough.
When I heard this, the first thing that came to my mind was that the Patriots are probably going to be focusing pretty heavily on stopping the passing game this week, unlike the Falcons, who last week decided to stop the run game and got killed in the pass game. I think the Patriots are definitely going to be focusing a lot more on stopping the pass game because it did show to be very good last week. Some videos have come out from Patriots practices showing that they had a corner playing quarterback to try to imitate Russell Wilson, running around in the backfield, scrambling around, just trying to stay away from the defensive line, which is funny, but honestly, it makes sense because Russell Wilson is so strong in just getting away from defensive linemen in the pocket, just moving around behind the line. And I mean, it makes sense why they'd have someone so fast to try to, maneuver around and stay away from them and practice that. But it's still funny that, you'd have to game plan for a quarterback by throwing some guy that's just fast and having him run behind the offensive line just all frantic. But it makes sense, honestly, and that's just another reason why I think that the Patriots are going to be focusing very heavily on the pass game, because they've shown that they're doing drills that are focused solely on Russell Wilson and stopping him doing what he does best. Of course, I don't think that there's a way that you can stop Russell Wilson. He's going to make big plays. He's going to have a huge impact no matter what you do. He's just great. He is that good. He is a top quarterback in this league, if not the best quarterback. And, I do think that the Patriots are going to be focusing very heavily on stopping the passing game, which will allow our run game to get much more involved than they did last week. But I do think the pass game is still going to do fine. Russell Wilson's great. DK Metcalf is great. Tyler Lockett is great. And maybe even Philip Dorsett, who was a previous Patriots player, can come in from his questionable marking right now and actually end up making a big impact as well. And on the topic of Seahawks injuries, Rasheem Green, who had a pretty big role last week against the Falcons in the pass rush, is coming into this game as doubtful. He might end up not playing, but this could allow Alton Robinson to get some opportunities. He got a lot of praise during training camps. A lot of great things were said about him, so it would be pretty interesting to see him come in, get some opportunities, see if he can have an impact, see if he can do well, because we really didn't get too much pass rush without blitzing. We had 2 sacks last week, one of which was Jamal Adams, and I believe we blitzed on over a third of our plays last week against the Falcons. So hopefully we can find a way to get more pass rush from just, our defensive line, but we'll just have to see how it goes. Alton Robinson might get an opportunity, but Rasheem Green, unfortunately, is doubtful for this next game. Like I mentioned a bit earlier, the run game did not do too well last week. Obviously, they didn't get as much usage as they normally do, but only 84 yards on 20 rushes, with Russell Wilson getting over a third of that in one single play. Wasn't really as good as you'd expect the Seahawks run game to do. Of course, the Seahawks did focus a lot more on the pass game. They did very well in that aspect, so they just stuck with it. The run game really didn't get going, but Chris Carson did do very well in the pass game. He had a great screen. The offensive line looked great. He did have 2 receiving touchdowns. Of course, it looked like the Seahawks were trying to get everyone involved in the run game week 1. Russell Wilson had 3 rushes. Carlos Hyde had 7. Chris Carson only had 6. Travis Homer had 3. But I would love to see Chris Carson get a lot more. 10 to 15 or more run attempts per game is kind of what he needs to be at to really make a big impact. But I do think that we will see a lot better of a run-pass split. Of course, it was great to see Russell Wilson throw the ball that much, but you have to get the run game involved. Seahawks football is about running the ball and then throwing it based on the success of the run game. And hopefully, like I said, the Patriots are probably going to be focusing on the pass game this week on the defensive side. So hopefully our run game will be able to do better than they did last week, be more efficient, be more effective. And I do think that we will be able to do that. I think Chris Carson should get a lot more carries than he did last week. Pete Carroll said he was going with the high hand approach, basically trying everyone out that first week. But I do think Chris Carson, he's the #1 running back. You have to give him the ball more than 6 times if you want success in the run game. And when it came to the defensive side of the football, although the stats did not look great last game, the Falcons having well over 400 passing yards, the run game didn't do horrible for the Falcons. It didn't do great, but they did have a rushing touchdown. The defense played fine. When you actually watch them, Jamal Adams played out of his mind. He had 12 total tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss. He had a sack, and he had 2 quarterback hits. He played very well. He was all over the field doing basically everything. And of course, Bobby Wagner did great as well. He was just everywhere on the field, just like Jamal Adams. He had some great tackles. He had some great pass breakups. And, Shaquille Griffin, he had a very good pass breakup. Quandre Diggs had an interception late in the game to basically seal the deal. Had a pass breakup as well. And, it was really just a good game all around. They did fine. Definitely you don't want to see them giving up 450 yards, but still, they played fine. When you watch the game, they played well. The pass rush really really wasn't getting there. Hopefully we'll be able to pick up on the pass rush. And, overall, I think it was a good defensive game last week. I think we could have done better. I think there are definitely spots where we could have done worse, so I'm glad we didn't do worse. But there's definitely places where we could do better, pass rush especially. And, not giving up 450 yards in the pass game would be nice. But hopefully our defense can play well, especially against a team who had over 200 rushing yards last week. Of course, that was against the Dolphins, but still, Cam Newton is a great runner at quarterback. They have a lot of options at the running back spot, so there is definitely potential that the Patriots will be a really good rushing team this year. But hopefully our defense plays well. I believe Russell Wilson will play well. I think the run game will get a lot more into it this week. I do think the Seahawks win. My prediction before, I believe, was 17-10 in a low-scoring affair, but the Seahawks winning. That was before Cam Newton was signed. I did predict that happening months before it happened. Pretty cool on my part. But I do think it will be a little bit more high-scoring this game. I still do think the Seahawks take it. Maybe a 28-21, maybe a 28-20, something like that for the Seahawks taking the win. I do think it'll be a bit more high-scoring than I first predicted, but I think it'll be a good game nonetheless. Very good defensive showing for both sides, hopefully. I think the Patriots defense will do well. I hope the Seahawks defense will do well. And I think both offenses will do fine, but I think the Seahawks will have much better success because Russell Wilson, I believe, is a better passer than Cam Newton. And, we'll just have to see what happens. That's my prediction. That's the preview. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. What do you think is going to happen? What are your predictions? And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching. Have a great day.